we are very fortunate. This is a first-time guest for us. So we've got David Ostreicher here, and he has 25 years experience in lean. Most of his experience is in lean supply chain management / procurement. You know, that supply chain stuff's taking a pretty big hit, you know, at this point. I think you know that, Dave, right? So you're like on the front lines, I guess. So currently,
that's what we hear.
Currently, he's a manager with Toyota. And Dave, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. So
oh yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah. So Dave, we haven't really talked too much. I'm kind of interested in expanding our contact and our discussion here. So supply chain management, procurement. Could you explain us a little bit about your current position and what's its relationship to lean?
Sure. So thanks again for the invite. This is something I've been looking forward to for a while. We connected a bit ago, and I'll talk a little bit more about how we got connected. But my current role, I'm with Toyota Motor North America, and I'm in what's called our Purchasing Supplier Development Division. So as you can imagine, Toyota, we're a large multinational company. So I'm one of 350 folks just in purchasing supplier development in Toyota North America. And so my role specifically is a project management role. So I have responsibility for the world's best-selling nameplate, the Toyota Corolla, as well as the all-new Corolla Cross SUV that we just started producing with our joint venture with Mazda. And then my team is also responsible for onboarding of new supplier partners. So as we take a look at the mobility future and what's happening with electrification and shared and autonomous and connected vehicle technology, our supply base is going to necessarily need to expand. And so my team's responsible for onboarding new suppliers. And then we also have a piece of our team that is responsible for challenging the current standards that are in place at Toyota. So you can think of a standard as how many times can I, shift my manual transmission until that transmission shift boot, the pretty thing that covers it up, fails. Or you could think of it as, do we really need to paint this piece of the engine compartment that a customer is never going to see? And so we have standards around a lot of different things. Some of them the customer might not know or even care about. And so how do we challenge that? And then finally, the biggest part of my job is future generation cost reduction activity. So if you think about the literally billions and billions of dollars that we as an organization are going to be investing over the next decade or so to shift what it is that is mobility, we're going to need to get that money from somewhere. And so a major part of my role is considering how do we reduce cost without reducing quality, durability, safety, reliability, anything else that the customer actually cares about, and then reinvest that money in the future of our mobility enterprise. So that's a little bit about what I do. As you mentioned.
Yeah. Just sort of thinking about that is quite a portfolio of responsibilities. And you talked about a team, and I'm trying to get a little bit sort of a feel for that. So how big is your team that's handling that? And are these all like direct reports to you, or is it a sort of a network sort of structure that you're working in?
Yeah, it's a great question. So my actual team is quite small. So I'm a manager level, which means we're a pretty flat organization. So between me and the president of Toyota in North America is, let's see, there's 4 levels between me and the president of Toyota North America, which means there's 5 levels between me and Akio Toyota. So we're a very flat organization. We're also a very, not to use the word lean like as a pun, but we're also a very lean organization. So the team that I just described that we're talking about, we've got 4 people on the team. So those are 4 direct reports. And then I'm part of a project management function that maybe has roughly 50 people. And then the 350 people that I talked about, those are folks that are direct buying side. So we buy 75% or so of the vehicle components, material, services that we use to make our vehicles from supplier partners. So really 25% of the vehicle we're producing in-house. So you can think of that as the very large parts of the vehicle that the customer might see in terms of body panels. But the rest of the vehicle we're buying from supplier partners, mostly in the areas in which we produce vehicles. So most of that is coming from North America. So yeah.
Yeah, very interesting. So are there like, so your Camry and this new hybrid, are there like other people that have your same jobs, or are there like 20 of you across Toyota, or how's that?
No, so it's funny. I used to have Camry, Avalon, and Lexus ES in addition to Corolla and Corolla Cross. With the future generation cost reduction stuff, some of my responsibility peeled off. So I don't have Camry anymore, but I have Corolla and Corolla Cross.
Okay.
And in terms of other folks like me, there are 4 other folks like me, but in North America, as you might know, we produce Camry. Avalon is going out of production, but wait and see what kind of comes up next. Lexus ES, and then Corolla Cross, we make RAV4, Sequoia, Tundra, Tacoma, Sienna. We make engines, transmissions, wheels, engine blocks. What am I missing? The Lexus RX we make, and then we've announced several other vehicles that we're starting production in North America. And when I say North America, I mean Canada, United States, and Mexico. So we have manufacturing in Indiana, West Virginia. We do manufacturing in Mexico, in Canada, in Mississippi, Kentucky, Alabama, and I'm sure I'm leaving some out, but that's what the website's for.
Well, thank you, Dave. Yeah, I didn't, I guess, I should watch out. I don't want us to go down too many rabbit holes, but it's just sort of a fascinating thing to hear about. I also want to encourage the students who have questions. Maybe they know a little bit more about cars than I do. They want to type a question in the chat or raise your hand, and we'll bring you into the conversation. So Dave, tell us a little bit about your lean journey. So we now sort of know what the job is. How do you get there?
Yeah, I think it's pretty fascinating. I think I was pretty lucky. So as you mentioned, I just Googled what is 25-year anniversary. So apparently I'm celebrating my silver anniversary with this idea of lean and Toyota production system. So I started as a student at University of Michigan in 1997, getting introduced to this idea of what Toyota was doing in terms of manufacturing philosophy by another student. His name's Paul Carbonneau. And he said, hey, you should check out this Toyota thing, because I was studying Japanese language and I was an engineering student. And he's like, I'm doing that. You should come, hitch a ride with me and learn about the stuff that's happening at the University of Michigan. So I did. There was a program called the Japan Technology Management Program that was funded by the Navy. So the US Navy was trying to also figure out what was happening with this lean thing. And so they put a bunch of money into different places, and University of Michigan was one of them. And so I started stuffing binders at a lean manufacturing conference in Michigan. And that's how Professor Olsen and I got connected, because one of the people who was a speaker at the conference, Bokiti, I recently got reconnected with him on LinkedIn, and we've been doing coffee for the past several months. And he connected myself and Professor Olsen. So you never know what's going to happen decades and decades after your college experience. But through that, I got involved with what the Lean Enterprise Institute was doing at the time, which was a lot of cutting edge research and publication on how to get this idea of lean thinking out to the masses. And then as a student, I was doing a bunch of internships. So I was working at a variety of different companies, automotive, non-automotive. I was at a shipyard applying lean principles to shipbuilding, which is fascinating. And then I got a chance to spend an entire summer with a former Toyota production system, I don't know, I'll call him an expert, who became a consultant, came over from Japan, and I was basically like his translator slash roommate slash coworker. So we worked together, we lived together, which as a student, I was very thankful for, because I couldn't afford any places to live around where we were working, and just got to just absorb, got to stand on the shop floor and learn from this guy, Yorozuya-san. Then I was fortunate to be able to again continue my studies and do my master's degree with a focus on Toyota production system with Jeffrey Liker at the University of Michigan. And then I joined Toyota. So I've been at Toyota since I left university, and I've had the opportunity to apply this thinking way on the shop floor and administrative processes in the office, as well as a 2-year dispatch to Japan on a transfer. And then came back from that and was responsible for the education and development of our 350 member supply chain organization. I most recently was asked to be, we call it Toyota business practice. It's our problem solving methodology. So I was asked to be a subject matter expert on that. And I continue to learn and grow. And I remember when this was floated to me as being a lean celebrity, I'm very, very much still uncomfortable with that terminology, but I am very happy and excited to be able to talk a little bit. So hopefully that wasn't too much, but that's how I came here in 25 years later.
Yeah, well, thank you, David, for that. And yeah, I apologize for the lean celebrity. It does rankle, you know, the more truly humble lean celebrities and that we have on here. But it's an honorarium sort of thing. I'm not paying you a lot to do this, right? So I just want to thank you, right, for being here.
My pleasure.
So can you tell us a little bit, maybe what your current lean challenge is?
Yeah, I think for me, the current challenge is developing sort of the next generation of folks who are passionate about becoming lifelong students of the Toyota way, in my opinion. I learned a lot and grew a lot through my shop floor experience. And especially recently, the pandemic has done so many different things personally, professionally, individually, culturally, globally. So there's many, many different things that it's done. And one small piece of that in the grand scheme of things, you know, not to minimize any of the actual tragedies that are going on our planet, but one of the small things is a complete change in the way we've worked. And one of the things that's been fundamental to how we work and learn is going to, you know, we call it Gemba. Gemba is a Japanese word. It means actual place. So the actual place where things are happening becomes more and more, frankly, unsafe. The more and more we had, you know, the pandemic raging, and I think the current challenge is getting folks passionate, excited, and having the experience that they can draw from to have many, many different tools in their toolbox and see many, many cycles of a particular process, so they can bring that back. And not only just maybe look at something on a manufacturing floor, but really take that into the more administrative processes that we do in our office, and frankly, into their homes. One of the things that I'm super passionate about, there's a guy named Mike Rother who's written a book called Toyota Kata. And Mike's basic premise is that one of the only skills that you can be taught nowadays, like for my kids, I mentioned I have a 7-year-old, 5-year-old, and 3-year-old before we started this chat. One of the few things that I can help teach my kids, except, you know, to be, you know, open and understanding of the variety of folks that are on this planet, is problem solving. And so I'm very passionate now about trying to help folks bring this idea of problem solving into their home. And I think that's a challenge too, because if we can get more and more folks with good problem solving thinking, they can improve the world's nonprofits, they can improve their own life. And, you know, as a byproduct, maybe they'll also improve, you know, their organization's bottom line. But I'm really passionate about that in terms of helping with problem solving teaching.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. I guess just you know, interjecting. So have you ever been to the Katacon?
I have not been to one, no.
So I'm going up over spring break in a couple of weeks. I'll
Awesome.
let you know how it is. So I think Mike Rogers
Awesome.
is supposed to be there. So, you know, I've never.
I would expect that he would be.
So, yeah.
He's a awesome individual, and he's putting his activities where his mouth is in terms of trying to educate elementary school teachers to be able to educate their elementary school students to become problem solvers and to gain a skill that won't become obsolete.
Yeah. And sometimes that Toyota Kata embedded scientific method approach is, it's so elegantly simple. And I worry sometimes when, we've taken at Cal Poly this sort of Lean Six Sigma DMAIC sort of framework, which, is big enough to handle anything, but sometimes, just you forget what that simple core is, right? So that's an important thing.
Yeah. Yeah, this isn't rocket science or brain surgery. This is just basic scientific thinking.
Right, exactly. So I want to encourage the students to get me off the questioning mode. Yes, Justine. Thank you.
Hi, so I really liked your story about Gemba, the term where like the place where value is created. You may have already answered this question, but what is your plan, or I guess Toyota's plan, to inspire people to get to Gemba? Like you said that part of the reason why it's been hard to inspire people to improve themselves or do whatever is because it's been really unsafe and it's been really difficult to get people to the place where they have to work, which is like them having to meet. Like, what's your plan to inspire people to do so, to get to that place?
Yeah, so thanks a lot for the question, Justine. So everything I'm saying tonight, I'm saying on behalf of me as this random individual who happens to work at Toyota. But I'll answer your question from my point of view. And my point of view is frankly technology. I am in Ann Arbor, Michigan right now. I am living in the future. It's 3 hours later here than it is for you. But we can have this conversation. Right before I got on the phone with you, I was on the phone with Japan. We had an hour-long, teleconference about stuff we're working on for a next generation vehicle. And so I think that as long as there are leaders of people that are willing to make the time to help the folks that they are responsible for become, more critical thinkers, better problem solvers, more steeped in the Toyota way, anything is possible, right? So we're going to Gemba now with people's cell phones showing, processes. We're going to Gemba now putting on our personal protective equipment, so getting our masks on and making sure that we're doing everything that the CDC recommends to be safe. Our folks in our plants have been going to Gemba basically this whole time. And so we've been fortunate to be able to be putting out vehicles into the market, and customers are liking our vehicles and selling them. And we did quite well last year. And so there's always a way, right? But the most important thing is for folks to be safe. And so we haven't returned to the office yet. And so it's been March of 2020 since I've been with my coworkers in the office, and we're not going to return until at least June of this year. So once you have that safety first mindset, okay, but then just make the possible possible.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the question.
Yeah, and, just sort of a little follow up on that, because I think, we've with this whole COVID thing and sort of the current generations of students, we've kind of been forced into that, that distancing mode, right? So I don't know if there will be a challenge where how do we get people to actually say, hey, I know you can cell phone, or I know I've got a good thing, but it's not good enough, right? So is there some thought that you've kind of sort of been putting in? So when your employee says, I'd rather stay home, is there a sort of gentle pushback or a way to an argument to sort of convince them that no, you need to go to the place?
Yeah, fortunately, I don't have to be the one that makes that decision, because as a large organization, we have a human resources department that says this is what we're going to do. So fortunately, I don't have to do that. But what I do have to do as a leader of people is to understand where everybody is coming from, because with this, ability to work remotely, we aren't going to go back to the way things were, because that isn't what the market, meaning, our team members want. And we're in a you know, in a competition for the best and brightest, just like everyone else is. And so we're going to need to adapt and understand what, you know, the future of, you know, hybrid work is going to look like. Fortunately, I don't have to say, oh, you need to be in the office, you know, X number of days or X number of hours, because we've got a human resources group that's going to say that, and it's going to be consistent, and all I need to do is follow the rules. But I also need to be open and able to listen to what my team members ask for, and then work within what it is we're allowed to do to be able to make sure that we are the employer of choice.
Excellent. So let's see, do we have any other questions in the chat from folks? Yeah, there we go. Jack, thank you.
Hi there, Dave. I just want to say go blue. My brother and sister both went to Michigan, so I've been out there quite a few amount of times. I kind of had 2 questions. One about lean. It was, what's been your favorite project you've worked at during your time at Toyota? And then my second question is, what was your favorite football game during your time at Michigan?
Oh my gosh. Okay.
You
So
can
favorite
either order.
No. So I'll do the, okay. So the favorite football game, I was actually in the Michigan marching band. I'm a trumpet player. Another thing, besides old lean counterparts that you can get back to after decades, I started playing trumpet again after 20 years. So it's never too late to pick up an old hobby. But in the marching band in 1996, we were going to The Ohio State University, our biggest rival. And they had an undefeated season, if I remember correctly. And I remember going to the horseshoe in the marching band, police escort and all, and the Michigan Wolverines defeating the Ohio State Buckeyes that day, and then leaving the stadium with the police escort. And then we actually played at a Chicago Bears game the next day for Sunday Night Football. And I remember getting onto the field and getting just booed, like we were booed, until we started playing the Beatles, because apparently the folks in Chicago didn't, I don't know, maybe they Western fans or something. But as soon as we started playing the Beatles, they were cheering for us. So that's my biggest football game memory. So I'm a band guy. And then second, in terms of favorite lean project, I'll spare you the details because it's kind of, oh yes, Brian, go Trumpets, well done. I'll spare you the details, but basically the crux of one of my most proud moments was on my first stint in Japan. I was there for 2 years in 2008, 2009. And I worked with probably 5 or 6 different divisions of the company to reform a process that was broken. And what it allowed me to do is to put into place a process that would allow information to flow all the way over the ocean to North America. If you can imagine this process originally, and I totally agree with Professor Olsen about manual processes are not necessarily bad. But in this case, this manual process was a piece of paper that went from some person's inbox to another person's inbox in completely different buildings. And then that piece of paper was supposed to eventually come to the United States of America for my team and I to do our job. And so as crazy as that sounds, the ability to digitize that and get all of these different groups to agree that that was the way to go, both in Japan and in the United States, was months and months of work. But the process is still in place 15 years later. So I think the key point of that is something that I've tried to hold close for all of these years, which is it's all about the people and getting people on board to help achieve a common goal. Because we all wanted this piece of paper to find its home and have a job get done. But was the piece of paper the thing that we really needed, or could we do something a little bit more effective and efficient? And the answer was yes, we could. So that's my answer.
Awesome. Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much. My brother also played trumpet at University of Michigan, so that's kind of fun, but a little bit later than you.
Trumpet players everywhere.
Oh, awesome.
Very nice.
All right. Well, I just want to say they had a lot of trumpets in the band at Ohio State too. I think that was all they had. That was all they had.
So I just have a quick one, and then we'll go to Keaton. So first and foremost, everybody knows the drums are the thing that makes the drums, that makes the marching band go. So team drums. Secondly, I've always wanted to ask somebody who works for Toyota. Do you drive a Toyota?
I do, sir.
All right.
Yes,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually funny. During the pandemic, we sold one of our Toyotas because we weren't driving anywhere, which kind of hints toward, what's the future of mobility going to look like when people aren't driving so much, or they can share vehicles, or so those are the things, obviously we're thinking about. But yes, I had, when I joined Toyota, it was the first year that the Scion TC was available with a supercharger. So I had one of the only supercharged Scion TCs on the road. And then I drove that for, let's see, a dozen years, even garaging it when I was in Japan. And then now I am a proud minivan owner. I don't have the new Sienna, which is, they're all hybrid and they're pretty awesome. I have an older Sienna, so I can't wait to go on my second, we're getting ready to go on our second trip for 2 years to Japan to work at Toyota. I can't wait to come back and get a new Sienna.
All right. You passed the test. Me and my 2014.
Thank you.
All approved.
There you go. Yeah. And the vehicle I sold was the new generation Camry, which goes 0 to 60 in 5.9 seconds, which was, for a Camry, it was pretty sweet.
Yeah. All right, Keaton, you want to take us on?
Yeah, thanks so much for speaking. I think it's really interesting to hear someone who actually works with international partners. So I'm wondering, what have you found from working with people in Japan in skills that you've gained in cross-cultural communication? Because I know I've had to work with some international partners, and I think it's a little bit more difficult just because of the language barrier, but I'm guessing you're better Japanese than I would ever be. So just communicating with other cultures seems difficult, especially in your position. So I guess what kind of pointers can you give for us when we're having to do that in the future?
Yeah, that's a great question. And actually, I facilitate a workshop specifically on that, both within Toyota and then outward for students. But I think the main piece is just a couple things. One is I always keep in mind that the people that I'm talking to are also intelligent adults. So speaking like what I would call baby English, or leaving out articles, or trying to speak to them like they're I don't even speak to my 3-year-old like this. I haven't spoken to any of my children, in a way that is not, assuming that they're an intelligent individual. So that's the first thing. Because like you said, my Japanese, I might sound like a 5th grader. So I sound like a 5th grader in Japanese, but I'm still communicating, right? And the intention is that I'm trying to communicate something that is my second point, which is we all have the same goal. If let's say our goal is, having the best product for our customer, the safest, most high quality, most reliable product for our customer. So if we have the same goal, then we can slowly make our way toward achieving that goal. Versus if we don't have the same goal, it becomes readily apparent that there's lots of friction. So part of it, besides the first piece is respect, the second piece is, what is the vision? Do you have a clearly articulated vision that you share? And then the last thing that I would say is, and if you're asking for advice, the advice I would give is learn a little bit about that culture. Learn a little bit of the language. If it was Japanese, be able to do a self-introduction in Japanese and then say, I'm sorry, that's all the Japanese I know. Because it shows that you're willing and open to engage with this other human being in a way that's uncomfortable for you, but makes them a little bit more comfortable. And then similar to the language, understanding a little bit about culture and what certain things mean and what certain things to make sure you do and make sure you try to avoid. Especially if you're working with one particular culture, that gets easier to manage, versus if you're working with many folks from different cultures, then it's kind of like, when in Rome, do as the Romans. there's actually it's called kotowaza in Japanese. There's actually a kotowaza, like a saying in Japanese that's exactly the same thing, which basically is just look around and see how other people are behaving. And as long as it doesn't go against your core beliefs as a human being, try and act that way to try and make everybody feel more comfortable and sort of grease the skids of those relationships, because it'll pay off in a more fun and easier work environment.
Thank you so much.
All right, David, and I want to thank you too. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us and talk to students. And so to wrap things up, there are little nuggets of advice, sprinkled throughout your presentation, but you need to make this easy for us. And if I had to take away one piece of advice that you're going to be given to these people that are just starting out on their lean journey, what would that piece of advice be?
Yeah. So thanks. And again, thanks for this opportunity. It's been a lot of fun. I think if there's one thing I'd like to leave you with is meet as many people as you possibly can and make sure that they know what you're passionate about. So I'm gonna take my own advice, and we've virtually met right now. And the thing that I'm excited about and passionate about is working a full career at Toyota and then coming back and teaching. I'll probably be teaching at the University of Michigan if all things go according to my plan. And so as we think about all the people that we can meet and that we do meet, so for example, Professor Olsen's going to go to Katakan. He's hopefully going to meet Mike Rother. He's going to say, hey, Mike, I had Dave Ostreicher in my class. And then, they'll talk about, me, and we'll connect again. But there's also like a corollary, to this thing about meeting lots of people and telling them what you're passionate about. One of the corollaries is that you need to be able to clearly understand and articulate what you're passionate about. And so for me, it's telling stories. I'm passionate about teaching and storytelling. So here I am. I'm theoretically passing along nuggets of something, hopefully wisdom. And I hope that you take at least one or two things from what I've talked about today. And if that happens, then I've fulfilled my purpose. So thanks again, and go out there and meet lots of people and tell them about your passion.
All right. Well, thank you, Dave. Appreciate it. Let's give him a big hand. Dave, one thing we do to say thank you to our lean guests is if we go to gallery view, we'll have everybody sort of snap on their video for a second. So we give Dave a wave, say thank you, Dave. Okay, so these are all the people you've affected, and hopefully we'll see you soon, maybe in person. I get to Ann Arbor once in a while.
I'm super easy to get a hold of.
All right, take care of yourself. Bye-bye, Dave.
All right, you too. Have a good one. Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.